So, speaking of cool and fun.
Okay, so we're moving on.
Woo! Look at this.
So let me lay a little bit of a foundation here. You know, different people have interests, and if you watch some of our earlier videos, I love firearms. Big firearms guy. I think it's a great skill, a great sport, something that my daughters, my son, the kids have grown up with. So their idea of gun safety and how to properly care for firearms, how to be around them safely. It's something that they just, have grown up and understood. It's important to respect and appreciate. But like anything, you get firearms, you got your pistols, you got your revolver, you got your semi-auto pistol. You get your rifle, you get your, shotgun, you get your military style semi-autos, you get your bolt actions, you get into your long range shooting, you get things that are just interesting. After a while, you open your gun safe and you don't have room for them anymore. And, you can just get a bigger gun safe and keep going, which some people love to do, and I'm a fan of myself. But you hit a point where you're like, okay, for the guy who just kind of already has it all,
what's next?
What's next? Where do you go to when you still want to be interested in things? So the what's next, and how long ago was it that I first said, you know what? I don't have a sword.
It was 2 or 3 birthdays
Because
ago.
I do have knives. Big fan of just blade technology in general, and so I have lots of knives, pocket knives, folding knives, straight blades, kind of interesting, exotic things that are really robust, powerful, resourceful tools. For all kinds of situations, because if you're out and you just need to nip something real quick because you're just in a pinch, having a great little pocket knife is handy. My kids, I make it a point to get them a nice multi-tool, get them a nice Swiss Army knife, just little convenient things. And if you're growing up around it and you know how to safely handle blades and the like, it really becomes one of those things that you're just, it's useful. It's cool, and
it's
can
almost
get
a rite of passage in this house.
Yeah, it is.
When somebody gets to be a certain age, they get
a blade, and you sit down and have a talk about how to take care of it, how to treat it, how to respect it, how to carry it and manage it when you're around other people. So there's a lot to it, but blades this long.
Versus this long.
Blades
See if we can get
this
that
long.
all in there.
Now, I'm going to start. She's holding this one up. We'll actually get to this one. So the premise and why this is, I think, interesting. When all else fails, blade technology is simply the most resilient resource. You can hunt with blades, home defense. You can use blades for home defense purposes. In all candor, they're quiet, so you can do a lot of things and not be in a position where you're making a real ruckus. Plus, there's a skill associated with properly handling blades, both small ones and big ones. There's a lot of work that goes into them. There's if you believe it or not, there's a very long tradition of people working with sword technology throughout all the world. This isn't particular to just kind of my interest in modern stuff and more recent stuff, but for centuries, this has been a part of the human condition. So I think for somebody that wants to kind of understand the world, understand history, and to understand the role of important features of human history, civilizational defining features of human history, to not be familiar with swords, I think in a way you're kind of missing out on what it is to understand the world that we came from and the world that we're now living in. And some days you wonder if we're going to return to. So that being said, I'm going to start with one, and I'll get into kind of the layout of this thing. And I'm going to get some assistance from Tamara, because these are like sharp, sharp.
You know, my track record with knives.
No, you just kind of sit upright and keep your hands out of the way. Just put them at your hips.
My very first jury trial as a Commonwealth attorney involved a knife, and in closing arguments, I managed to cut myself.
Close it down on her hand. And they're doing arguments bleeding. Now, you still won.
Oh yeah, but it was not how I would have pictured my very first jury trial at all. But
so let me go ahead and I want to pull this thing up. This is a unit that's produced by a company, and the name, make of it what you will, but just because they have an interesting name doesn't mean that their product is not first-rate excellent. This is produced by some folks out of Missoula, Montana. It's their company is called Zombie Tools, like zombie apocalypse.
So this
tools.
would be the where we're going versus the where we've been side of
the world's always changing.
This is where things are headed, right?
Well, quite possibly. I'm not preparing for a zombie apocalypse personally, but when I actually started to research and learn about modern blade technology, these guys are on top of it. They started in 2007. And their whole goal was to make actually fully functional blades that were durable, used the latest and greatest in the way of steel and metallurgy technology. These things are legitimate, and these are serious weapons. They deserve a lot of respect. But Zombie Tools, you can get more information from them at zombietools.net. But this is their Diphos unit. It, as you can tell, has... double-sided. The length of this thing overall is 35.5 inches. So this is a substantial piece of hardware. The actual blade length itself is 25.5 inches. Or actually, no, I think this one is just 25 inches. So I'll correct myself there. But this is a cool part. And it does come with its own Kydex sheath when you get it, and so that you can see the handle, that's real leather that they use. They don't skimp on products. Every bit of this thing, it's just shy of 3 pounds. Wife, keep the hands away. It's just shy of 3 pounds, weighing in at 2 pounds and 14 ounces. But you can see it has cool chemical treatments that they've done to it that give it kind of this modern, kind of almost neo-punk, post-apocalyptic look to it.
Looks like it's been in battle.
Oh, yeah. But this is one serious piece of metal. And it isn't something that's a toy. It's not intended to be. But when you think about it, the guy who kind of has everything, and maybe the gal that has everything that they could hope for, but they want to get something interesting, you want to surprise them for Christmas, you want to surprise them for their birthday, and you want to know that this is going to be something that they're going to keep literally forever and care about. It'll be an interesting conversation starter.
How do you clean it?
Clean it, you use special oils. It's interesting when you get into these high grade, and I think this is 5160 grade steel. Very hard. It's got a certain amount of carbon that's embedded in it, and that carbon is living. So you have to take care of it. There are special oils that you get, and it doesn't take a lot of maintenance. If you're comfortable caring for firearms, caring for a good high-grade, high-quality blade is completely within your realm. And it's something that you can, take care of every few months, give it a nice little coat of oil, and the thing will last you a lifetime. You can go ahead and have it sharpened yourself and learn how, or if you want to contact Zombie Tools, I know that they'd probably be happy to ensure that your blade stays healthy for the long term. But this is one of the
3 pounds.
Well, you've got the sheath on. But yeah, it's 2 pounds 14 ounces when it's unsheathed.
I see.
But this Kydex is first rate. They don't chintz on any of their products. And the cool thing is if you're into any I don't know, what do you call it? Like folks that do Renaissance fairs, things like that. You could, attach things to the kydex to make it more, I guess, time period appropriate. I don't care about that. I actually care about just the quality of the blade, the utility of it, because this is something with this kydex, you could literally strap it onto a pack and take it out with you, and it doesn't matter if if it's held this way or if you have it at an angle, it's secure in there. You have to put some effort into getting it out. So this is like actually a legitimate tool. And if you watch any video of zombie tools, you go hack down a tree with the thing and the blade is impeccable. So it's just one of those things. You can run around with an axe, or you can run around with a high-grade
zombie tool
sword and cut through weeds, cut through whatever you need. You can go the machete route, but the machete...
You can do the B-lot.
Yeah, often just is a one-handed thing. Think about how much more effective you can be if you have two hands hacking through whatever wilderness or environment that you're in. So there is actual utility. It's not just... kind of a fantasy thing. And when you understand, again, the, practical side, it can be a self-defense tool, or the utility side of using it out in the field to either cut down branches, clear space. And it's compact. It's 0.25 inches wide on the blade, and the handles, maybe just over an inch. So it's just one of those things. Now, that to me is a very useful utilitarian blade. But zombie tools, they actually put real time into their work. So if you're going to order one, expect to wait about 8 weeks. And I think you recall that.
Yeah.
You order it, and then you get to be patient, because they will hand make every one of these. They're built to order. So if you have any preferences or interests, you can talk to them, and they will accommodate you. But if you go to their website, this is just a blade they do. They have a whole swath of axes, hatchets, blades of different length, dimension, things that you wouldn't have even thought of, but when you see them, you can actually see a lot of utility because they want these to be functional. So don't let the Zombie Tools name fool you. These guys are first rate. It's American made, and it's something that they take a great deal of pride in. Again, they've been around since 2007, and I don't see them stopping anytime soon. But when you see what they do with their blades, the abuse and punishment that they'll put them through just to demonstrate how serious it is, totally worth it. I'm very proud and very happy to own one. Now
talk about this elegant one.
Yes.
This one speaks
this,
to me.
and just to provide some context here, let me actually move through here, because I do want to show briefly. This is the Diphos unit that Zombie Tools does. To give you a sense of the size, this is one of the guys that works and actually produces these. But he's holding this thing up, and he's probably got to be at least 5'10" or greater in his height, because the way he's gripping it and his relative posture, it's not, he's a little shorter than probably I am, but it's a substantial blade, and it does look very cool. I will not detract from that, but a lot of utility in it. But I do want to move on. This is not what I have, but I wanted to have a good picture to show you another concept of blades. Now, this is clearly what you would call a more traditional blade. This is a katana. These started being produced in feudal Japan in the 14th century. When you hear about samurais and the effort to unify and consolidate the feudal system in Japan, those various families of samurais, these are the weapons that they use. These were a status symbol. And even today in Japan, there's a whole deep tradition, which I don't even presume to know, about how to maintain the respect, how to handle the traditions associated with the maintenance of a katana or samurai sword, or however people want to characterize it. But these are things that, you can get very high grade, high quality, modern katanas that you can, put through the ringer, make use of. Again, they're very utilitarian in many respects, but you can just put them through their paces. You can be interested in what I am, which is just get something that's very useful. Or you can look at this as something that's an investment. In Japan, these things, they're $250,000, $500,000, probably $1 million swords out there that are so rare and were produced by these, almost mythological swordsmen who had skills and training and techniques that even today haven't been replicated. Science and metallurgists of today will look at these old swords and just try to ponder, how did they create this thing? Understanding the technology of the time, the patience involved, they cannot discern how they created these resilient, powerful tools that have lasted throughout literally the centuries now. But it's one of those things that, it's a two-handed blade that, as you can see in this picture, this is traditional for a katana. It's a single-sided blade, unlike the Diphos that I showed you from Zombie Tools, which has two sides. This is a single-sided blade. And so from the technique of how people use a single-sided blade versus a two-sided blade, there's a whole psychology about how to do sword fighting, for example, techniques associated with it. So there's actually a lot that goes into it. But until you're handling one of these things and looking at them and literally just putting it in your hands and feeling it, you don't think those thoughts. And so for somebody that's just kind of interested, not just from the standpoint, here, we can pull this one out. And somebody will, probably comment that we're probably blaspheming important traditions. But the point is that you can see that's a big, big blade. This is not a toy at all.
Is this copper at the base?
This is brass, actually. This guard is part of the tradition of a katana. It'll either be round or square, typically. The one in the image here is more of the square form. These are designed to be held with two hands, and I'll actually flip over here and pull the image up. You can see they are designed to be held with two hands. And so the blade that I'm holding here, you can kind of get a sense. Clearly my hands, I would need two hands to fully grasp this. And I don't have, big hands, not small, but just kind of average large hands. But when you look at blades like this one's a very well made. This is, again, not a toy. It's got some heft to it. But likewise, when you read and you study and you learn about history, it's interesting to actually hold and see the implements of warfare throughout human history for, centuries. These are things that built entire empires, led to the demise of empires. And so the ability to hold these things, understand, read about them, learn the traditions of them. It isn't just, fantasy and, ooh, it's cool and, kind of geeky stuff. There's actually a lot of rich traditions around this. I will admit, I do want to get one last sword. It's called a rapier. The distinction with a rapier is that it's a very long sword, and we're talking, 3-4 feet long sword, and it's a very thin sword. Has usually a big handle with a guard on it. But when you see kind of classical European sword fighting stances with one arm,
yes,
what they're trying to do with that thing is jab it into somebody's heart. So they weren't worried about the samurais hacking through maybe some leather armor or plates or things of that nature, or kind of more traditional
Take your head off.
Yeah, you know, kind of like something that you'd think a barbarian, if you will, might find appealing. People in the Iberian Peninsula, old Spanish folks, and it, you know, has traditions outside of that. Italians, a lot of Mediterraneans were very big fans of the rapier because it was a very kind of discreet weapon. Could be hidden easily.
Probably quite light.
Light, and so you could be very agile in your handling of it, but they were just trying to poke you in the heart and kill you.
Is foil another name for those? Seems like a
I think so. Yeah. I think so. I learned to just remember the rapier because when you start to get into kind of generic terms versus very specific for a given type of blade, the blade I am interested in is called a rapier. But it is a very long blade. They wanted to stay away. They didn't want to get into hacking or anything. They just wanted to get you in the heart. So when you look at modern sports around sword fighting, they're using kind of a rapier-esque sword. Now, obviously, they're padded up and protected, but that's the skill that they're seeking to develop and cultivate. But even today, it's a sport. It's in the Olympics.
Yeah, has been for a long time. Too.
Has been, and it's kind of one of those novel features. But I think my main point is twofold. One, for the guy that has everything and you just want to get something that even, I don't care how kind of, I don't know, thorough a guy's hobbies are, you give him a nice sword, he's going to love it. It is so cool, so interesting. But at the same time, the flip side is if you're kind of the history buff, the reader, the thinker, and being able to handle these things and then read about the traditions that these come from, the cultures, the societies, the evolution of ideas around this type of technology, it is very interesting because you're learning about human history in a way that's very much definitive. The sword shaped empires, and to actually hold one and think about it until you do, it's just in the abstract.
So if I were to give another one of these as a gift, I got to thinking about it. When you give a knife as a gift, you always give $1 with it so that the person can give you back $1 because that's just.
I don't know about this tradition.
You don't know about that?
No.
Yeah, that's how I grew up. Whenever you gave a knife as a gift, you also gave $1 so the person could give you the $1 back. And it was, I don't know, somehow good luck and good use of the knife.
Well, I have a friend, and I'll leave him unnamed unless he wants me to bring him up later. He'll open a blade, he'll hand it to you, but he will not let you close a folding blade. He believes that he needs to personally close it so that he's aware of the condition of the blade when he's handling it from there on out. So people have different ways and traditions. Now, again, Katana has a deep tradition. You could get whole books that
I'd like
just
to know what the
teach
tradition
you.
is around the handle and all that weaving that's going on. Because
Well,
I noticed,
this is to hold it, but underneath
it's the same
this,
one on both your modern picture and your historic picture.
yeah, but this is how you actually grip it. Underneath, though, because this can be replaced.
Yeah.
So as this gets worn through or dirty, you can go ahead and have it restrung, if you will. Mm-hmm. But underneath are these beautiful ornates. This one has some sort of flower underneath a medallion flower, and you can't really see it per se, but it's brass. But you don't want to handle that because that gets dirty. It could get slick if there's moisture and blood. Mm-hmm. You don't want it slipping out of your hands. So they added this weave to help manage it and keep it controlled if you're in a combat situation. Here, this one has leather. And the leather interesting thing about leather, as it gets moist, it actually becomes grippy.
Yeah.
So, this type of blade, they wanted to go with leather. This one, this one's now obviously a synthetic nylon base, but historically, probably silk. But there's whole traditions around this, and so I think probably what you're describing in how people handle blades, probably much the same in that you go to one part of the world, they have their own traditions, their own norms around it. You go to a different part of the world, and because of the nature of the blade, how it's used, probably a whole other subset of traditions. But I hope, at least by bringing this up, you realize that you talk swords and people think, oh, okay, buddy, whatever you say. Or you talk blades and it's like, no, there's a lot there. And until you actually handle it and look at it, it doesn't really click. But you spend a little time with it, and it's really, it almost like calls to you in this kind of deep way, because you're like, yeah, no, I can see why they got into this.
Okay, buddy.